Hey everyone, here's my day 2/3 update for Glacial Cascade Elementalist. As I stated previously, the Foulborn Toolborn Wand is crazy good for how cheap it is. It's 1C. I've completed my Atlas now and killed Maven and Uber Elder with it. I've also done my first Tier 17 map with it and all Maven invitations, except for the Feared and the new one with the Tier 16.5 bosses. I didn't have much for my day 2 update, which is why I'm combining the two, since I spent most of the day sitting in my hideout and procrastinating completing my Atlas. Most of the time I just sat there and didn't do anything, and other times I was planning out what I was going to do far into the future when I didn't have to complete my Atlas anymore. I just really didn't want to do it this league. Moving on to what I've done. Most of the upgrades and changes I've made are for getting tankier, since I really hate dying. I bought a 40C 6-link Sacred Chainmail, I split it, and then hit it with some dense fossils. I got pretty lucky and managed to get my current chest prefixes and 5 dense fossils, and then I used Eldritch currency to craft the suffixes since I didn't have any divs for the Reforged physical strat. I ended up with double tier 2 res though, which is pretty good. I also crafted a Divine Crown with mana reservation efficiency so I can fit in Discipline, which I needed to go CI, which was my plan after I got a Sacred Chainmail. Making the transition to CI is pretty simple. You'll want enough mana reservation efficiency. Sources for this include 1. Your helmet with both an implicit and an essence suffix. 2. Anoint Charisma on your amulet. This costs about a divine, or it did when I did it. 3. Get a small cluster for reservation efficiency with 25% increased effect. These are 20 to 30 chaos currently, and they'll eat up some passive points, but if you don't have any of these other options available, that's a route you can go. Number 4, get Replica Dragon Fang Flight. That's about a divine, and it gives some reservation efficiency, but not enough. You'll have to combine it with some of these others. Number 5, Enlighten Support. Those were ADC last I checked, but you'll have to level it yourself. And getting the first level is pretty easy. Getting the second level takes forever. Number 6, Bringer of Ruin Ascendancy Node. That one's free. You just don't get to use the Ascendancy Node elsewhere. Number 7, you can get 2% Corrupted Implicit and 3% Reservation Efficiency on a normal Cobalt Jewel. Last I checked, those were 30 to 60 Chaos each, but it's 5% Reservation Efficiency per Jewel, which is pretty good. There are other sources. This is all I can think of off the top of my head, and should be sufficient for you, for now at least. Some combination of those will get you enough reservation efficiency to fit Discipline into your Auras and Herald setup, along with Tempest Shield. So pick and choose what you want to do there. You'll also need to give up some gem sockets to fit Discipline and Tempest Shield in. I dropped Vol Cold Snap since I can't generate Frenzy Charges anyway. I'll explain more on that in a minute. I also dropped the Arcanist brand setup. You can drop that when you A, have cold exposure on hit on your gloves. This lets you drop Frost Bomb. And B, you have curse on hit on your ring or corrupted on your gloves, freeing up a curse slot, which means that you'll just have one curse linked to Arcanist brand, which defeats the purpose of the brand, meaning that you can drop Arcanist brand as well. This lets you fit in an Enlighten support. It lets you fit in Frost Shield. If you don't use an Enlighten, I highly recommend Bone Chill on Frost Shield. It boosts your damage quite a bit. Frost Shield also gives you crit chance and more tank so long as you're inside the Frost Shield. I only use it in boss arenas or simulacrum, so feel free to swap it out with something else if you want. And it also lets you fit in Discipline. Moving on to other changes. I got a Timeless Jewel. Mine costs 60 Chaos. The only two important things are it has to be a Militant Faith with Dominus, and it needs to not change any of your notable passive skills. The reason you want Dominus is for the Inner Conviction Keystone that gives you 3% more spell damage per power charge, but it also means that you can't generate Frenzy Charges, you generate power charges instead, which is why I dropped Fel Cold Snap. And it needs to not change any of your notable passive skills. The other effects on it don't matter much, but can help. I went with Reduced Mana Cost because it was cheap, and it's, in my opinion, the best one. Because mana can be really annoying problem to solve when you're doing things later on with the build. I also got increased effect of non-damaging ailments just so that my shocks harder and so that I have more chill effect, but really you can go with whatever you want here. So long as it's Dominus and it doesn't mess with any of your nodes, that's good enough. I also put Inspiration in my 6-link instead of increased critical strikes because I couldn't color my chest to get 6 blue. I've spammed so many chromatic orbs and it just won't give it up. So when I eventually hit that, I'll get Awakened Increased Area of Effect and throw that in. But for now, my AoE is kind of sad. Another upgrade, I got a Replica Dragonfang's Flight. Those are a div last I checked. I paid 2 div for mine since I got one of the first ones that was posted. I got Curse on Hit on my ring. I'm just using a Mark of Submission. I'm going to craft a Redeemer ring later on. I got an Explodey Barracks ring. This is not needed. It's just fun. I needed some dopamine to motivate me to map and to finish my Atlas. Explosions are pretty and feel good, so I got it. Your Heralds are usually explodey enough all on their own, but more explosions is more fun. So I'm using it. You don't need it. In fact, I would recommend not spending however much it costs. Last I checked, it's like 13 divines, and totally not worth 13 divines on this build. One other change I've made is I grabbed the Shaper of Flame Ascendancy node rather than Heart of Destruction or Bringer of Ruin. I did this for the Fizz damage reduction that you get. Well, pseudo Fizz damage reduction. It converts 40% of the enemy's physical damage to fire. I'm also doing it because of the Explodey ring. Without the Explodey ring, I would probably be going Heart of Destruction or Bringer of Ruin instead. Heart of Destruction's better, so I'd probably just go that, but Bringer of Ruin is cheaper for going CI on a budget. I got a +1 power charge shield. It's a synth implicit on my shield. I saw that they were pretty cheap. They quickly went up in price. Probably not worth whatever they are now. Unless it's still only a divine or a few divines. I mostly bought it so I can experiment with it later. Right now, it's not doing a whole lot for me. The +1 power charge is nice. So I may try some alternative Malachi's Loop setup where I ditch Malachi's Loop and I ditch the Ralakash boots and just use that, but then I lose the Maven belt. So we'll see. We'll see what I end up doing. Like I said, I'll just play with it later. I am quite tanky as I am now, but I'm still not immortal by any means. I don't die very frequently, and when I do, it's either to a tier 17 map boss, me being dumb, or sometimes mobs with invulnerability aura, since I have a bad habit of frost blinking into packs to blow them up, and then I get ganked when they don't blow up like I expect because they're invulnerable. Or big ignites from some bosses when they hit me. Some ignites do so much damage, which is crazy. My to-do upgrade list. This is not in order by any means. These are just plans I have for progressing the build with the currency I make. They also are all conveniently upgrades that I need for my Ice Nova build that I plan to transition to later. Number 1, craft some sick rare boots with 100% chance to avoid shock and get a Storm Shroud Jewel for ailment immunity. If I don't do that, I'll get the Power Charge Ralakash boots and just die to ignites on occasion. But these would let me use the Maven Belt and Malachi's Loop, giving me a ton of elemental damage recouped as energy shield and 2 more power charges. So it'll be a toss-up between the two. We'll see what I decide on. A new belt, mine is Cheeks. Graven's Secret, which is the blue Maven belt I was just talking about. If I go the Ralakash route is what I'll do. Otherwise, I'll just craft a crystal belt. Probably a Redeemer one so I can get increased damage to chilled enemies. New rings, minor Cheeks, except for the Explodey one, which doesn't do much except make me feel better about myself. Number 5, I'll finish the implicits on all my gear. Number 6, get a bottled Faith Flask. Number 7, I'll contemplate crafting a +5 staff. I've tried really hard at the Breach Tree to craft staves, and it seems they only want to give me mauls and war staves, which is really annoying. I do get staves on occasion, but they've all been pretty bad. Number 8, I need a Hatred Crit Chance Watcher's Eye or Discipline Energy Shield on Hit Watcher's Eye. Later on, I will get both, but that's really expensive. It's 42 divines right now for both. Number 9, I need a +1 Power Charge Helmet, either a crafted rare Warlord helmet on a Divine Crown base or a Corrupted Cyrus helmet. Those are both good options. Number 10, +2 Rare Amulet with some other sick mods, and I'll drop the Replica Dragonfang Flight, which is going to be really hard to drop because it means I don't need as many attributes, which means that I can use Runegraft of the Fortress, which is another one of the upgrades that I just got. It also gives Reservation Efficiency, which we are starved for, and +3, which is crazy. But a well-crafted +2 amulet is better. Number 11, a better crafted shield, or Malachi's Loop, one of those two. Number 12, cluster jewel setup. I'm going to go with an 8 passive cold cluster, the usual with blanketed snow, widespread destruction, and prismatic heart. And then I'll get an AoE cluster and a crit cluster. But the cold cluster is really, I wouldn't say difficult to craft. It's really annoying to craft because it takes so long to hit it, and they're really expensive. There's none on the market currently. Moving on to really expensive upgrades. Headhunter or Mage Blood for obvious reasons. Prices may vary on those. Headhunter is really good with Glacial Cascade since it's a fist spell converted to cold, so a lot of the Headhunter buffs apply to it. Mage Blood, just fantastic belt, better than everything else, in my opinion. +1 Power Charge Ring. Those are currently 60 divines. I want that plus a Calandra's Touch for later on. Right now it's not going to do a whole lot for me. And then the Forbidden Flesh and Flame for Forbidden Power. Those are also currently 60 divines for the pair. And that will make the power charges scale so much harder for damage and for area of effect, which is what I really want. I'll also be checking the Liege of the Primordial Forbidden Flesh and Flame, and I'll swap to Occultist to get Forbidden Power and some other goodies. If those end up being cheaper, we'll see. I'm still fairly poor. I've only got like 12, or somewhere between 12 and 15 Raw Divines to my name. And then Awakened Spell Echo is also on my list, and Awakened Increased Area of Effect for my Awakened Gems. I'm sure there's other upgrades I can look to or other paths I can take. The beautiful thing about Path of Exile is how many options you have and how many paths there are to greatness. For example, I could scrap pretty much my entire setup, and I could go Armor/Evasion as my primary defense, go Low Life, get a Progenesis, use Feral's Fur, Will Clash, Surge Binders, and Badge of the Brotherhood. I'd have a ton of power charges, a ton of frenzy charges. I'd have maximum uptime on them so long as they don't get stolen or a rare mob doesn't delete them instantly. I'd have Giga DPS, less survivability, but it would be really good. I have done that before. I could focus more on Golem Effect. I could go in all in on Crit Multi. And that's it for my Day 2/3 update. I finally made it through the Atlas. I got some decent upgrades. My character feels awesome, though I need a lot more AoE for it to feel truly awesome, which I won't get until I either swap to a staff or get Awakened Area of Effect and /or Forbidden Power, Flesh and Flame, and Power Charge stack. As always, please comment if you have any questions, or come see me when I'm streaming on Twitch and talking to my friends in Discord. You can ask me questions on Twitch. Please leave a like if you're enjoying the build so far, and I'll catch you next time.
Time has no meaning. Your pain will...
Amount of my might.
The end of the cycle of